Hello and welcome to the fifth webinar as part of the NDIS Success Roadmap. Today we're going to talk about strategies for success. This is all about marketing your new and expanded NDIS services. First of all, Community Business Bureau acknowledges the traditional owners of country throughout Australia. We recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to them and their cultures and to elders past, present and emerging. Today I'm in Adelaide and I'm preparing this webinar and presentation on the Kaurna lands here. The NDIS success has completely changed the business models of disability service providers in recent years. The old market was one where service providers were block funded and individual clients or participants had to come to the provider. Now the individual participant has choice and control over the service provider that they engage. The power is in their hands now. In response, disability services organisations now have to attract new clients to cover lost clients through attrition and in order to grow. And they also need to have a greater focus on the customer journey and experience. Initially, when the NDIS started, most participants stayed with their existing service providers. However, as new services and ways of service delivery are available, people make more informed choices and choose more flexible, responsive and diverse services. More innovative services are emerging. From the organisational perspective, many long-standing with disability providers will have started out with a mission that was predefined by the existing beneficiaries of the organisation, and this may need to evolve with the market changes too. Welcome to our Strategies for Success webinar. My name is Andrew Ellis, and on behalf of the CBB consulting team, I'd like to welcome you to this NDIS Success webinar. In today's webinar, we'll talk about strategies for success with improving your marketing strategy and customer journey or experience to have a sustainable business. We'll speak both about attracting and retaining new clients. This is the fifth webinar out of 6 in our NDIS Success series. In the first webinar, we provided insights into the fundamentals for success within the NDIS market and who gets an NDIS plan, what is funded, and how that money can be spent. Our second webinar was about the importance of understanding the market you want to operate in. We looked at the people that you support, what they need and want from their NDIS provider, and who else is already providing NDIS services in your area. In the third webinar, we spoke about how to design new NDIS services for people with disability. The fourth one looked at NDIS compliance requirements for registered providers, but also for unregistered providers. And that session was focused on quality, compliance and risk. Next time round, in our last webinar, we're going to look at the importance of understanding and analysing your potential revenue and associated costs. Financial viability and sustainability is critical for any organisation operating under the NDIS. If you haven't had an opportunity to watch the earlier webinars, you can find them all on the CBB website. Watching all of them will maximise your learnings. We also recommend that you work through the activity worksheets. There's an activity worksheet for each webinar and we've compiled a template which will help you to develop a business plan. Additional information and links are available on our website. We cannot cover every detail in depth in a short webinar and you'll surely have some questions after watching these. So please use the Facebook forum to ask any questions or to give us any feedback, and you can access that online or on your phone. And there's no cost involved with being part of that group. If you're having trouble accessing that, then please give us a call. We've got 5 parts to today's webinar. Firstly, we're going to look at the connection from your business strategy to marketing strategy. Second, we'll talk about the marketing strategy itself. Thirdly, the marketing plan and the marketing mix, which involves the P's of marketing, which is product, positioning, price, place, and promotion. We're going to spend a bit more time going and diving in more depth into promotion. And then lastly, we're going to look at the customer experience and journey. As we travel through today's webinar, I encourage you to have the activity worksheet close to hand. You might find it useful to pause the webinar so that you can complete some of these exercises as you go. So our first topic for today, starting off, is looking at connecting the business strategy to the marketing strategy. If you've been following along all of the webinars, then you would recall having done some exercises in the activity workbook and even with the business plan template that will prepare you for what we're about to do in this webinar. Our second webinar, Understanding the Market, asked you to think about such things as, what is your strategy? Who are the target markets? Who are your competitors, and what mitigation strategies do you have to compete against them? And then lastly, what differentiates your organisation? Our third webinar on service design had you thinking about, what does your service or product look like, and what markets or locations are you serving? All of these elements are critical in setting the basis for your marketing strategy, plan, and activities. And if you haven't thought about those for your own business yet, I'd encourage you just to hit pause for a couple of minutes and write down some answers to those questions. Marketing strategy needs to align with the business strategy, and your marketing strategy will help you achieve your business strategy or overall strategic plan. Marketing goals or objectives need to link to the overall business goals and objectives, since the purpose of marketing is to support the overall organisation's vision and strategic direction. Many or even most organisations working under the NDIS will have growth as some part of their goals and strategic plan. Some may want to grow quickly and significantly, but maybe you're a sole provider or in a small regional market and you don't plan to grow, but you do want to maintain consistent customer numbers, and that's okay. Strategies within this webinar will help you with attracting new clients, because that's important to ensure that your business plan doesn't go backwards if a client relocates from your region to somewhere else or sadly was to pass away. If you're looking to grow your overall business and your NDIS business, you need to be realistic about what growth that you target. How much growth do you want? How much growth can your organisation handle? And how will you scale to achieve that growth? In Australia, if you had 20% year-on-year growth, that would put you into the fastest growing companies. So doubling in a year is well beyond the norm, and it carries major risks and challenges as well. What does your strategic plan say about growth? It's important to understand your business strategy before you do your marketing strategy. And the methodical build-up in your strategy development and market analysis, which we spoke about in earlier webinars, will normally include exercises like SWOT or SOAR and PESTEL that can be used to inform your marketing strategy and goals. If you don't have a current organisational strategic plan, you should start here, as that's going to inform your marketing strategy and provide a framework for your business decisions. If you have inefficiencies in your organisation at the moment, and then scale up and grow under the NDIS, you'll also be scaling up those inefficiencies. So it may be worthwhile addressing internal growth constraints before pursuing major growth in services. There's an organisation I know some years back that had a 2-year strategic plan, where the theme of their first year was building for growth, and the theme of the second year was going for growth. They knew that they wanted to grow, but they needed to address some key systems and processes before they got too far. We've seen from earlier webinars that the NDIS market continues to grow, with still perhaps up to another 100,000 participants still to be added to the NDIS before it reaches maturity. We also know that utilisation rates around the country are still quite low, and there are opportunities to serve more customers with more services from both these perspectives. Under the NDIS business model, it's critical that you're able to secure enough client business to make your NDIS product or service financially viable. Whether that is about sustaining a consistent client load, replacing any lost customers, or growing will depend on your strategic plan and vision. How well you attract new clients will have a significant impact on your success as an NDIS business, and this comes through marketing. It's important to understand how potential customers come to know about your organisation. Marketing is about generating leads and potential new customers. We all like to think that we do a good job of what our organisation's main purpose and services are, but marketing can force us to ask the hard questions about how good are we really? How good are we at ensuring a consistent delivery of service that every customer goes home valuing? And how good are we when compared to our main competitors? It's important to find a sweet spot between the following: the purpose, whether you're a specialist or generalist, and the purpose points to the strategic plan and strategic direction. It also relates back to the objects of the organisation found in the Constitution and the reasons that others, even before your time, started the organisation. Secondly, commercial viability. Asking about that will help you to focus not only on the services that deliver a margin, but also can question whether you might loss lead on some services. Principles are also important. For example, are there services that you specifically will not provide? And lastly, values. Are there customer goals that you specifically will not cater to? Our next topic today is to look at the marketing strategy. We'll come to see through the rest of this webinar that marketing is the activities and processes for creating, communicating, delivering and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners, and society at large. It's a process for exchanging value between humans for benefit. The marketing strategy involves looking at the brand, target segment or segments, positioning for each segment, and marketing objectives for each segment. We'll talk about more about each over the next few slides. Starting with the brand. What brand will you use? Will it be the company name or a different name? For a sole trader, your brand might be built around your own personal name. A lot of the time, the brand will be the same as the business name, but it doesn't have to be. If your company name, for example, is XYZ Incorporated, then do you just want to abbreviate that down and be known as XYZ? If you're a large organisation or work across a number of different markets, for example, disability and aged care, then do you want a different brand for your NDIS services? When adding new services, is it a natural fit to your current brand that customers know you as, or would it be worthwhile setting up a different brand or sub-brand? Who's your target audience or your target segments? This isn't the same as who your customers are. The target audience for your marketing activities are potential customers, those who may interact with your organisation in the future. Who do you want to target with your marketing efforts? Each segment should be unique without any crossover. For example, it might be that you're a physiotherapist practice specialised in working with people who have neurological conditions. You might have clients with multiple sclerosis, acquired brain injury, and Parkinson's disease. Each could be a different target segment for your promotion. You'd recall that we spoke about target markets and segments in the earlier webinar, Understanding the Market. From the data analysis in that webinar, you would have some good definition of your potential customers and target segments. If you haven't watched the second webinar, then it'd be worth going back and doing so, even stopping this one now to do that first. Defining your target segment will help with other decisions you need to make within the marketing plan. Who are your most important customers? Who are the beneficiaries that the organisation will set up to provide services to? These are your target markets. Marketers have many different ways of segmenting or breaking down the target market of potential customers. When you define this, there's no right or wrong, as it depends on the market. Each target market or segment should be unique. It could be based on demographic information, type of disability, geographic, behaviour or psychographic factors. The more accurate you can define this, the better it will help when setting out your marketing plan. We've talked about your market position in webinar 2, but what value do you offer your customers? How does this address their needs? How is it different or better than your competitors? Instead, it might be that you're in a rural or remote area where there aren't even any competitors, or only a very small number. There might be a range of different issues which your target segments have as drivers and barriers that you need to consider in marketing and selling services to them. What drivers are there that prompt consideration of your service? For example, is it driven by the needs and funding in their NDIS plan for daily supports, or is it related to achieving a goal? Are there barriers that prevent your target segments from accessing your services? This might be physical in the case of access limitations, or the distance from your premises to their home. It could relate to thoughts or beliefs about your organisation. The market might prevent you from working with the customer depending on the content of your NDIS plan or local competitors. Life circumstances with the other supports that the participant has could act as a barrier in choosing your service, and there might be other issues. When it comes to positioning your organisation based on the different market segments, you should recall the core competencies or strengths and market understanding, including market size and competitors that we spoke about in webinar 2. Positioning, this is your brand. It's how you compare against competitors and what your unique strengths are. For each target market, you could review what they want and what their motivators might be. From here, you can develop your positioning, what you or we, the organisation, want to be known for by each segment. Whilst unique, don't make them too different. There's a difference between positioning and messaging. As an example, you could think of an organisation whose overall purpose is to work with people with visual impairment. They have a part of the business that's working in disability employment services, and the purpose of that business unit is twofold. Firstly, they support people with visual impairment with finding and keeping employment, and secondly, they're a generalist provider with a broader client base, and this work creates a surplus which is applied to the other charitable purposes of the organisation working with people with visual impairment. In this example, the disability employment services business has two market positions. To customers who have a visual impairment, they want to be seen as a specialist provider, which is the best business of its kind working with people with visual impairment. They want to position as a specialist and an expert. To customers with other forms of disability, they want to be seen as an employment services business capable of supporting anyone to get and keep a job. The messages are important to not get mixed up. For example, if a potential customer with a physical disability just considers that they are focused on people with visual impairment, they might not want to go there. One way to think about your positioning is to look at what author Simon Sinek refers to as the golden circle. The golden circle starts first by asking why, and then you move out to the how and the what. Why means starting with your organisation's purpose, but also looking at your brand. Your brand is part to do with your logo and colour scheme, but the more important, though less tangible part, is the values behind the brand. Toyota has long been known for quality and reliability. When people think about the body shop, you think about their work and values in protecting the planet and not testing on animals. When you think about Apple, you think about innovation and simplistic design. Well, what do people think about when they think about your organisation and its brand? Brand starts with the organisation values and the why your organisation exists. After establishing that, do you have a consistent visual style for your brand, colours, shapes, fonts? Is it used consistently? If you have a tagline or a slogan, does it accurately reflect your unique products and services? Is your signage up to date and easily recognisable at a glance? Are all of your physical assets consistently and distinctively branded across everything that a customer might see, including vehicles, uniforms, and premises? It's after knowing the why, you can move out to the how, which includes your positioning and target markets, and then the what, which gets to the marketing activities and tactics. It helps when building your marketing strategy to think about the objectives for each of the target segments. We'll talk about activities in the market plan next, which is how you go about achieving the objectives. What are the goals, or what are you trying to achieve from the marketing activities? Ensure you include activities related to the launch of any new programs or services, as well as ongoing new clients to existing services. Writing out your objectives is a way to define your goals for each target segment and relate these back to the overall business strategic objectives and strategic plan. Too often, organisations end up writing objectives that are sweeping statements, which are impossible to measure against. Using the SMART acronym will help create a better objective that can be measured, and this means having objectives that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. The table here is included in the activity worksheet, which you can use to develop your own marketing objectives. For example, with the target segment of people aged 24 to 55 with a psychosocial disability in a particular location, you might want to reach 100 potential new customers with an aim that 5 of them inquire about a new service. Next topic, the third one today, is to look at the marketing plan, and we're also going to talk here about the marketing budget. Stepping back before we dive into the marketing plan, the steps to building a marketing plan involve understanding the market that you're operating in, which we discussed in webinar 2, the strategic plan for the organisation. You might have an existing one, or you might be in the process of writing a new one as part of this program. Also includes your marketing strategy, which is the brand, target segments, objectives. And now we're going to look at the P's in the marketing mix. Your product or service, if you're a service-based business, was the subject of the third webinar, where we worked through the design of your service. This includes the resources, systems and processes, technology setup costs, ongoing costs, and capital expenditure. You should think about this product or service both in terms of what existing customers want, or what makes them happy and come again and again, and what new customers might want. The maximum price is set by the NDIS price guide. The NDIS also set the categories and structure around which you structure your services and prices charged. If you need a reminder or more information about this, then you can go back and review webinar 4, which has more information on that. The NDIS intend that at some future point in time, they'll do away with the price guide and allow providers to set the price themselves. So you might also want to think in future about what you would do if and when the price list ends. The place where you deliver services was also a part of webinar 3 on service design. And to a lesser extent, we also spoke in webinar 2 about how you might consider expansion options, for example, based on geography. Place includes how to get your product or service to your market and how people can buy it. So you'll see from this that we've already thought a lot about the elements that make up your marketing mix as part of all the different webinars so far. And the place we started from was understanding the market to ensure your NDIS services are what your existing and future customers want and are not in an area already saturated by the services of competitors. I'll speak more about promotion shortly. These elements that you can draw on in the marketing plan are known as the marketing mix. Like an iceberg, some of the marketing elements are more visible above the line than others. Customers or potential customers will see and notice some aspects of your organisation more easily than others. The marketing mix includes your promotion, which is how you advertise and promote the organisation, for example, website, public relations, advertising signage, and word of mouth. It also includes the product, which is what the customer gets, which is the tangible product or intangible service. It includes the price, what it costs, and the way in which customers pay, and the place, which is where and how you can get the product or services. Like the iceberg, the visible parts of what we often think of as a marketing can only be done well if you have the marketing strategy and plans in place. Otherwise, you risk wasting resources with poor messaging to the wrong people. Place involves where and how you deliver the services. It might be at your location rather than driven by the NDIS participant's home. Place also includes how the service is purchased. Is it exclusive to NDIS participants, or is an NDIS plan just one way to pay for it? Is this a direct purchase? i.e., is the user of the service or their guardians going to purchase the product, or will the product be made available through third parties such as a disability service provider with complementary services? The next P is price. If you're a registered provider, then the maximum prices you can charge and the structure of how you charge has been set in the NDIS price guide. It's worth thinking at this point in setting up the new service about what you would do if there was no longer a price guide in place and the caps are lifted. The NDIS have spoken about their intentions to do this when the market reaches maturity, so you should have a plan for this. Likewise, with continual changes to the guide and the pricing, it may be that previously non-viable services you want to provide could become viable in the future. The next P is product. This is where the research we talked about in webinar 3 on service design will help you. So if you haven't watched that already, please go back and check it out. In summary, you can look at the 3 C's of the product, which is what the customers want or need, what wants or needs do competitors already meet, and where are the gaps in the market. And lastly, what are your core competencies? Which services can you deliver and deliver well? Your marketing plan brings together these P's and helps you to create the marketing budget. Coming to an example here with the marketing budget. You can list out the key activities that you want to do in order to promote the organisation and to potential new clients. You can make an assessment of what you think each will cost and include that in the table as well. Some may be a one-off cost that can be included in the subtotal column, and others might be something you do on a monthly or quarterly basis, such as advertising. Following our previous example, we might estimate that to run campaigns on Facebook to boost posts with the aim of attracting new clients will cost us $200 each time, with a plan to do so quarterly and an annual budget of $800, as an example. Our next section of the webinar is focused on promotion, and that's a key area of marketing and an element that many disability-focused businesses did not have to think too much about prior to the NDIS. From an organisational perspective, the activities you perform need to take potential customers from a place where they might not have even heard about you to a place where they become clients, repeat clients, and hopefully even refer their friends and family to become your clients too. Thinking about this from the potential customer's perspective, they need to go on a journey discovering more information about you and your organisation, where they can trust you, and ultimately in getting to a point of making decisions to do business with you. In thinking about this journey, it can be helpful to think of this process like a funnel. Just because someone calls your office to inquire about a service doesn't guarantee they'll end up using your services or becoming a regular customer. Depending on your business model, you might need 5 or 10 such inquiries before you end up with a new customer. In other words, it might take 5 or 10 potential clients at the top of the funnel for one to fall out the bottom and become a client. So explaining the funnel now. We start off by trying to reach our target audience or potential customers with your message, brand, and value proposition. This might be from the NDIS provider list, advertising, direct marketing, digital marketing, social media, etc. You need the right mix of paid, owned, and earned media to drive a response with a clear call to action. You can engage your target customer. A customer reacts in some way to your message. They might click an ad, visit a website, sign up for e-news, register interest, or share your message. Next, you're hoping for an inquiry. So a prospective customer decides to reach out and make an inquiry. That could be phone, email, walk into the office, face-to-face in the community, or social media, or they see you at an event. You need to latch on to that prospect the instant they make contact. Treat them like gold from the very first interaction. Give the prospective customer a surprise or delight moment during that initial interaction. Even if they don't reach the next stage of proposing, make sure you have a system to maintain regular contact with them in case they are simply tardy or not happy with the service they choose. You can propose a solution for the prospective customer and provide a quote for that. As we get towards the bottom of the funnel, we need to sell, converting from a prospect to a paying customer. And in NDIS speak, we need to execute the service agreement and conduct onboarding activities there. And then lastly, it's about retaining. You want to deliver or over-deliver on your proposal to ensure customers stay with you. You want to cultivate the relationship and let the customer know that you appreciate their business. And you want to aim for the customer to stay with you for their lifetime, depending on your service and target demographic, or at the very least, to try and upsell to other services through partnerships and complementary providers if it's not your core business, repeating a similar process as above. If you want or need to use the media to reach your potential customers, then first think about what type of media will be the most effective in terms of the return on investment for you. Paid promotion is advertising in all its forms. You pay to control the message and to whom it is sent. Owned promotion is the communication you control directly. For example, your website, product experience, staff, vehicles, they all communicate. Earned promotion is all the communication you can't control. It's word of mouth and journalist publicity, including your influencers. All three kinds have a place. Without paid media, it's hard to reach enough people. Without attention to owned media, the people you might reach might not turn into a sale. If you fail to properly set up channels to encourage people to share information and generate earned media, then you miss an opportunity to grow your reputation and perhaps gain extra reach too. In reaching your target audience of potential customers, it's best to start off looking at all your existing assets that can be used. It's really important to think from your customer's perspective, not the media perspective. If you know what problem you're solving, suddenly you have a whole range of things that you can use to connect with them. Before you get into looking at what advertising options you would do, I'd recommend having a look at what assets you have, so you can try to use as many of your assets as possible, effectively and efficiently, before needing to spend money on media. Your assets include marketing, collateral, website platforms, advertising content, brand, product, reputation, awareness, value, product, service, experiences. Physical, that's the space, the office, the location, merchandise, vehicles. Intellectual, so your professional know-how, your IP, customer knowledge, history, and content. There's the human assets as well, staff, customers, champions, and spokespeople, and your partners' assets. So that's your collaborators, competitors, funders, and media. Here's an example, and let's think about a hypothetical business that's focused on a particular type of acquired disability. The organisation is well known as a reference point when people are first diagnosed with this disability, and so many potential customers come to them at this point in their life journey. However, they don't always stay long-term as a client, meaning the organisation now has a database of, say, 1,000 potential customers, but only 300 are using existing services. Besides the database, the organisation has some other existing assets with a contact centre, quarterly newsletter, website, and good followings on social media channels. They have two target audiences. Firstly, the existing customers, and then they need to find a way to reach out to the 700 people living with the type of disability that the organisation has focused on. Sorry, I've just lost the slide there, but we're back. They also want to know, you also want to find a way to connect with the 700 potential customers through social media and newsletter and ease them back into knowing your organisation, building trust and developing new customer transactions. In this organisation's case, I would suggest it's pointless focusing on a paid ad buy when you've already got a good idea who the potential customers are through your database. Utilising the contact centre or reception and admin staff to reach out and check contact details would be a more cost-effective way to build new customers than paid media. You can see from this example there's a need for a number of different marketing activities to better utilise existing assets. And now our final section, the customer journey and experience. As we speak about the customer journey and experience, you should think about this in the context of the previous webinars and the whole ethos of the NDIS. The NDIS is about giving individual participants choice and control over their needs and goals and the services that they buy. Instead of the old model of block-funded organisations helping individuals, the NDIS has the participant as the customer with the power to choose a provider that best suits them. To be successful in the NDIS business model, you need to understand your customer segments, including what's important to them and what they value about your service, and it may not be what you think it is. You need to be customer focused, having a person-centered approach about meeting the participants' goals, not about what's operationally convenient for you, the service provider. It's important to consider the customer experience, as this will contribute to customer retention and your brand reputation. This includes every step of the way, from when they phone you or come into your office, to how the service is delivered, to how it is invoiced after. Making sure that the customer experience meets the marketing promise is so important and sets the basis for customer satisfaction or otherwise. With low utilisation rates for NDIS plans across the country and even lower in regional or remote areas, there remain strong opportunities for organisations to achieve growth simply by providing more of the same services to existing customers in spending a higher proportion of their plan. It makes sense, therefore, that a satisfied customer will continue coming back to your organisation to ensure that they max out the services that they can get from you within their NDIS plan in support of their disability and goal achievement. Some strategies to help keep existing customers happy include to deliver or over-deliver on your proposal to ensure they stay with you, cultivating the relationship and letting the customer know how appreciative you are of their business, aiming for the customer to stay with you for their lifetime, depending on your service and target demographic. Focus on an end-to-end customer experience from onboarding through service delivery to transition from service, making sure that you're hearing the voice of the customer as well as cultivating and appreciating them. And you can upsell to other services, providing additional value to them. You can have all the right systems and processes in place, but it's still up to people to implement these. You can build a customer-centric culture by recruiting for customer service values, measuring, reporting customer service indicators, and integrating into performance management and role modeling the right behaviours. As one of my managers said some years ago, every role in the company is either directly working with customers or supporting someone else who is. Defining all roles in the terms of the customer creates a conscious focus on the impact of a process or system change on the customer experience. The picture on the screen is an example of how you can do a customer journey map. This model shown comes from an organisation called Design a Better Business, and they have other examples on their website of other different models you can use to analyse parts of your business. There's a link in the activity worksheet to this model so you can find out more. To use this model, you need to start with a persona. Start with defining the customer personas that you're creating the journey for. Be specific: the name, age, occupation, skills, interests. This should be the same as your target market and your audience. That is, work and thinking you would have done in watching Understanding the Market webinar 2. Touch points. What are the different moments of interaction with the customer, whether it's in your office or medical suite, a customer's home, or a group at a community centre, online, etc. Some moments may be more important to the customer, but are currently not touch points, and you can map these moments as well. The customer is the primary focus in this model. Mood. What is the customer's mood at that very moment and in those different stages of this customer journey? Are they happy, frustrated, angry? What in those moments can make that so? Timeline and stages. To find at least 5 moments in the journey, and that's the main blocks across the middle of the page there. What's the step-by-step experience for the customer? Starting from their initial inquiry to your organisation, your intake process, a signed service agreement, service delivery and invoicing afterwards. Customer needs. What is the job the customer wants to get done in each of these stages? For example, if your customer seeks to identify the company they want to work with, we need to understand the various touch points. What are the questions customers have at each point? One option is to have someone actually go through these key points and act like a customer as a mystery shopper or a role play, and you might find some unexpected frustrations in that process that you can learn from too. You might like to think of some of the invisible touch points as well, for example, interacting with online systems or completing forms. Customer journey mapping provides insights into how customers experience a product or service, as well as how they might be better served or even delighted. Customer journeys are not linear. A customer can jump from one phase to another. The process can be used to identify where customers get stuck, where they have great experiences, and why. It helps to look at products, services, and your organisational processes through the lens of the customer. One outcome of writing out a customer journey will be to identify quick wins to act on immediately. Customer journey is relevant for everyone in the organisation. Everyone on the team in your company needs to understand what your customers experience, how they feel, what they struggle with, and how you can improve that experience. We can apply the example of a customer journey map for a speech pathologist practice, which is an unregistered provider. In this example, we consider the customer as a self-managed NDIS participant who is seeking the speech pathologist services. The participant or customer's touch points with the organisation might be to make an initial inquiry and booking through the website, then enter the speech pathologist's office or medical suite, receive the services, get the invoice and make payment before leaving. When inquiring and making a booking via the website, the customer needs up-to-date information, knowledge that the NDIS services can be provided, and timely responses to the requests. When arriving at the speech pathologist, the customer needs accessible parking, a friendly reception including somewhere comfortable to sit, and a short waiting time. In receiving the services, the customer wants to be listened to have choice and control, and receive a quality service. And then after the service, the customer needs to pay, and so will require an accurate invoice and details of how to pay. All NDIS providers need to have a complaints management system in place, no matter if they're registered or an unregistered provider, and this is part of what we covered in webinar 4. The complaints management system needs to be relevant to supports delivered in your registration group, compliant with the NDIS complaint rules, and follow principles of fairness and justice. It needs to be relevant to the size and scale of the provider and scope of and complexity of supports. And needs to be accessible with advice on access to advocates and how to complain to the NDIS Commission. Whilst this is an important part and relates to times when a customer has a bad experience, many providers have also found value in having a broader customer feedback system which is customised to your organisation and can be used to provide feedback on what is working and what needs to be improved. Maybe you've already had an NDIS complaints management system and other forms of customer surveys and are thinking about how to further improve your customer feedback. In that case, I'd suggest looking at Net Promoter Score as a more advanced way to measure your customer satisfaction over time. The Net Promoter Score uses the question of would you recommend as the most significant single indicator of customer satisfaction. You can find more information about this model on the internet and examples of how to calculate it. As we reach the end of today's webinar, we want to summarise the outcomes that you should have reached if you've been following along and completing the exercises in the activity worksheet. We started out today looking at the marketing strategy in the context of and alignment to the business strategy. We looked at the marketing strategy, marketing plan, and provided an exercise in the activity worksheet to start thinking about a marketing budget. We spoke about your organisation's marketing mix and lead generation process to identify the gaps and shortfalls in your marketing process and ensure that this is a smooth process for all new customers. Under the NDIS business model, we've also seen how important it is to keep customers happy, nurturing them through the customer experiences and journey. Being successful under the NDIS involves growing new customers to replace lost ones and adding new ones if your plans are to grow. What should you do after watching this 5th webinar? Please review the questions in this week's activity worksheet and the business plan template. To find the resources and more, please also visit the NDIS Success tab on our website. And please join the Facebook page and post a question or like a question so we know which questions to address first. We trust that you found value in today's webinar. The Q&A session for Strategies for Success will be released on the 6th of October, and we would value you contributing a question via email or the Facebook group. Next webinar in the series is on sustainability in the NDIS, and in this one, we'll look at the financial sustainability of NDIS businesses. The sustainability in the NDIS webinar will be available on the 13th of October, followed by the Q&A session a week later on the 20th. Thank you for watching our 5th webinar on Strategies for Success. Goodbye for now.